Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video day, and today the NBA announced their 2025 All-Star reserves. Obviously, the starters were announced last week. Western Conference, Curry, Shea, LeBron, Durant, and Jokic. And then the East was Brunson, Mitchell, Jason Tatum, Giannis, and Kat. The reserves were announced tonight. We're going to start with the Eastern Conference. We're going to go how they went. They started off with the Eastern Conference and then went to the Western Conference. In both conferences, there's 3 front court players, 2 guards, and 2 wild cards. So it can be either a guard or a front court player. And so let's get into it. So the Eastern Conference. Let's start off with the guys that are getting into their first All-Star game. Let's start off with Evan Mobley, who's had a terrific season, and he's going to be in his first All-Star game. Well-deserved for Evan Mobley this year, averaging 18 points per game, 9 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, over 1 block per game, almost 1.5 blocks per game. He's had a terrific season for the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 1-seed Cavaliers. Another guy, not surprising he's getting in, but I didn't have him in. I'll go over the guys I had in after I'm done. Tyler Hero getting his first All-Star selection. Has had a great year. 24 points per game this season. 5 rebounds per game. 5 assists per game. His best season by far of his career. And he's shooting great from 3 as well in this season at 40%, which is the highest of his career as well. Tyler Hero is having a great season. I'm not surprised he's in, and I definitely think he deserves it. I just didn't have him in because there are some guards that were definitely all-star snubs that we will go over. And the other guy that is a first-time all-star and well-deserved in the Eastern Conference, well-deserved out of everybody that are the first time getting their first-time selections. How about Cade Cunningham, who's turned the worst team in basketball to a top 8 seed, averaging 25, 6.5, and 9 assists per game. Has been a double-double machine this year, even a triple-double machine this year, having a great season for the Detroit Pistons. Well-deserved for Mr. Cade Cunningham. And then this guy isn't a first-time All-Star. This is kind of his first All-Star game. Well, it's not going to be his first All-Star game, but this is going to be his first real All-Star selection. His first All-Star selection, which was in the 2021-22 season, he did replace. I can't remember who it was that was injured, but he did replace an injured player. I'm sorry, but I can't remember who it was that was injured. And but this is his first time actually being selected and not being an injury replacement. So yeah, congratulations to Garland. Again, I didn't have him in there. He's had a great season, averaging 22 points per game, 7 assists per game. You might get upset because I didn't have him in there. The only reason I didn't have him in there is because I didn't feel like Cleveland deserved 3 All-Stars, and I felt like I had Evan Mobley over Garland just because I felt like it was easier to pick guards over Garland than it were to pick front court players over Evan Mobley, because I really felt like there was only 3 front court players that you could really say, hey, these guys should be an All-Star, and it's the 3 guys that we saw selected tonight: Mobley, Brown, and Siakam, who I'm going to get into in just a second. And I just don't think, just me personally, Garland's great. I don't think Cleveland and OKC this year have been very, very equal. You look at the 2 matchups this year, not only did they have 2 of the best records in basketball, very identical records, but also, Cleveland beat OKC in a close game. Then let's look at what happened the second time these 2 teams faced off against each other. It was a blowout for OKC without their 2 big men. OKC does not need 3 All-Stars, and the reason I say they're not going to get 3 All-Stars, and they didn't, is because they don't really have a third All-Star. Like, Shea is an All-Star. J-Dub might have been an All-Star. You'll have to wait and see when I get to that. But outside of that, there's not really a third All-Star for this team, for this Thunder team. And I just feel like if OKC gets 3, I'm not going to say – I'm sorry. I feel like if Cleveland gets 3, I'm not going to say OKC should get 3 too, because they don't deserve 3, because there isn't a third All-Star on their team. It really should be 2 All-Stars for both teams. I know it is what it is. But that's why I didn't have Garland in. I had Mobley in with Mitchell, and not 3 All-Stars for the Cavs. All right, moving on. Let's go to Pascal Siakam, who is getting his third All-Star appearance. Well deserved. The Pacers have been one of the hottest teams in basketball recently, and he's played some great basketball alongside that. They're the 5 seed in the East now, and Halliburton this year I think has been way too inefficient. He's had a lot of efficiency issues for him to be an All-Star, and so much guard talent for him to be an All-Star. So with the front court, with not a lot of front court guys outside of Brown or Mobley to be an All-Star, it makes perfect sense that Siakam is an All-Star this year, averaging 21 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. Just had a 37-point game last night. Then the other guy is Jaylen Brown. This is the last front court guy. Jaylen Brown going in his 4th All-Star game. This year has had a great year, 23 and 5 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game, and it obviously makes perfect sense that Boston is getting that second All-Star. And the final guy is a guy that has the most All-Star selections out of everybody that got selected tonight. Actually might be the most. No, he's not the most selected out of everybody selected tonight in West and East, but in the Eastern Conference, he is the most All-Star selected. That's Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard's had a great season this year. This will be Dame's 9th All-Star selection. Dame has had a great season, shooting great from 3, scoring really nicely this year. So well-deserved for Dame Dollar to be an All-Star again for the 9th time. Then we will get to the Western Conference. Let's go to the first all-time, first guys, the first selection guys. How about Rockets? Alperen Şengün, who's having such a good season for the Rockets this year. It makes perfect sense that the Rockets, the 2 seed in the West, 32-14, just beat the Celtics and the Cavs 3 times, are getting an All-Star. And Alperen Şengün, it makes perfect sense that it's going to be him, averaging 19 and 10 with 5 assists per game. An absolute great season it's been for Alperen Şengün. Well-deserved for Alp. As a Rockets fan, really proud of what he's done this season. Then another guy getting his first All-Star game, and kind of because of how good his team has been, just like Şengün's All-Star selection, Jalen Williams getting his first All-Star selection. He's had a great season. He's averaging 21, 6, and 6. Has been great defensively, almost 2 steals per game, a block per game, and has been, no doubt, has been the best player outside of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for this Oklahoma City Thunder team that is the 1 seed in the Western Conference. Then we will get to the guy who has been the most selected out of everybody that was selected to an All-Star game tonight, and that is James Harden. James Harden, it's not surprising the Clippers get an All-Star. I think the Clippers have been surprisingly one of the biggest surprises in basketball this year. James Harden's done a great job. He's averaging 22 and 8. I think there are a lot of people upset that Norman Powell wasn't selected to the All-Star game because he's had a great season as well, just like Harden. But I think it's fine that Harden's getting his 11th selection. Look, to me, I just feel like, me personally, Norman Powell's great. He's been great, and I don't think you're going to hear anyone say he hasn't. And if you do, he's the people that are saying that are just casuals. But Harden has been a big reason of Norman Powell's improvements this year, and a lot of other people's improvements. Like Zubac has had such a great season this year, and Harden's has played a big role in Zubac's improvement, and so many other players in the Clippers team. So Harden, I think, has been the real. Sure, maybe Norman Powell might be the best player on this team this year, scoring-wise, but Harden has been a big team builder this year. I think he's made Norman Powell a better player. Same thing with Zubac and so many other players in this Clippers team. And has had such a great season, averaging 22, 8 assists, 8.5 assists per game, and 6 rebounds per game. And he's averaging almost 2 steals per game, which is one of his career highs. It's his third out of he's played 16 seasons. This is his 3rd highest steal per game average right now. So definitely makes sense that James Harden's an All-Star. Then let's go to another first-time All-Star, Victor Wembanyama. Makes perfect sense that Wemby's going to be an All-Star this year. This year he's averaged 24, is leading the NBA in blocks with 4 blocks per game, 11 rebounds per game, which is near the top with rebounds, 4 assists per game. Wemby's been terrific this season. I'll go to another guy who has been terrific and is a big man, Anthony Davis, getting his 10th All-Star selection. He has been great this season as well. It is. I think it's unlikely he plays in this All-Star game. He just got injured. He's going to be reevaluated in a week. The All-Star game is in about 2 weeks. But if he gets reevaluated in a week, I'm sure they'll push it back, and he probably won't play in the All-Star game if I had to guess. But we'll see what happens. This year, Dave is averaging 26 points per game, 12 rebounds per game, 3 assists per game, and 2 blocks per game. Well-deserved for AD. He's had such a great season. And then going to the last couple guys, we got Anthony Edwards, another Anthony, 2-time All-Star, now 3 All-Stars for Ant. Anthony, 47 games, 47 starts this year, has averaged 26, 4 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game, has been one of the best three-point shooters in basketball, 42% from 3, and has made the most threes in basketball this year, shooting 10 threes a game, though, and has had such a great season with the Timberwolves. Does not surprise me. He's an All-Star. And then the final guy, Jaren Jackson Jr. is an All-Star for the second time. Last was an All-Star in the 2022-23 season. Was not last year, but he is now. This season, in only 29 minutes per game, has averaged 23 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, 2 assists per game, and has been great defensively with 2 blocks per game and 1.5 assists per game. 1.5 steals per game. And he shot well from 3 this year, 36%, which is the second best he's shot in his career outside of his second NBA season, and it makes total sense that Jaren Jackson is an All-Star. He's to me, he's the best player on this Grizzlies team. Jaw's great, right? You want to compare Ja and Jaren? Jaw's averaging 20 points per game, 9 assists per game, while Jaren's averaging 23 and 6 rebounds per game, and is putting up some crazy defensive numbers with two blocks per game and 1.5 steals per game. Now, I think Ja and Jaren are pretty even when it comes to the stats, and both mean so much to this team. But I think the biggest factor why Jaren's an All-Star over Ja, and why Jaren, to me, is the better player on this Grizzlies team than Ja, talent-wise, if we're going to go over talent-wise, Ja obviously is the best player on this team, but I think one of the best attributes you can find in a player is availability, and Ja has missed 19 of their 47 games, while Jaren Jackson has only missed 2 games this season, and that's been a big help for this Grizzlies team. When it comes to player-wise on their roster, you look, who's the best player on this Grizzlies team? It's Ja Morant. But when it comes to availability, who's the best player on this team? It's Jaren Jackson Jr. And I think he's been more of a help to this team this year, because when Ja's off the floor, when Ja isn't available, he's missed 19 games this year. Who's the biggest help? Who's one of the best guys on the floor? It's Jaren Jackson Jr. And if the Grizzlies are going to get an All-Star, as they did tonight, it 100% should be Jaren Jackson Jr. So, complaints, now that I finished it all, you're going to always find guys that should have been the All-Star game that are not in it. And I have multiple guys that can go for both conferences. Like in the Western Conference, how the hell is Domas Sabonis not an All-Star? And this guy is number 2 in three-point percentage. He is number 1 in rebounds. He's number 2 in he's number 1 in double-doubles, and he's only played 3 games this year of his 45 games where he does not have a double-double. So 42 games out of his 45, he's had a double-double. He's put numbers up like this, averaging 21, 14, and 7 assists, and somehow he is not an All-Star. It does not make sense. Make it make sense to me. I really think who do you take out, though? Do you take out Victor Wembanyama, who's averaging 24 and is making up these crazy block numbers and killing it as a young second year star? Or is it Anthony Davis, who's averaging 26 and 13 or 12 or whatever it is? He's having a great year. As much as I love Sabonis, AD and Wembanyama should be all-stars over all-stars over Sabonis. And then Şengün, stat-wise, Şengün, yes, I think 21, 14, and 5 are better numbers than 19, 10, and 5. But a big stat is winning. Şengün is the second seed in the Western Conference, while the Kings are like the 9th or 8th seed right now. So that's another big thing. That's why Şengün's an all-star, so I don't think you take Şengün out. One of the only guys you can go to that I think, okay, should he be an all-star over this guy, is Jaren Jackson Jr. But, look, It's another thing. Just why Şengün's an all-star is the same reason why Jaren Jackson Jr. He's playing great basketball on a winning team that is the 3 seed in the Western Conference. Same reason Şengün's an all-star, because he's on the 2nd seed in the Western Conference, like Jaren's in the 3rd. So, stat-wise, Sabonis probably should be over Jaren Jackson Jr. and Şengün. Not Davis and Wembanyama, but over Şengün and Jaren Jackson Jr., Sabonis should be in this All-Star game over those two guys. But when you factor in the part of winning games, which is very important, he should not be over Jaren Jackson or Alperen Şengün. And then Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving, I thought, was an All-Star snub. His average 24 this year. Has had to play a good part of the year without Kyrie Irving. But I mean, like, who are you gonna put him out for? I mean, James Harden, who's averaged 22 and 8 this year and has turned the Clippers into the team that everybody thought was going to be one of the worst teams in the Western Conference, into a top 6 team in the Western Conference, which no one saw coming. James Harden, of course, Kyrie Irving should not be an all-star over James Harden. And then we can go to Anthony Edwards, who's been one of the best three-point shooters in basketball this year. If you had to make me pick, I'd have Anthony Edwards in there over Kyrie Irving, as good as Kyrie Irving is. And then Jalen Williams, you got to reward winning. Just like if that's exactly why Şengün and Jaren Jackson Jr. are all-stars, Jalen Williams got to be in there. So it's really hard, and that's why I've always said it. Look, there's 13 players on an NBA roster. There should be 13 players on an all-star roster and not 12. And this would make it a lot easier. You could have Sabonis or Kyrie, who are all-star snubs in the Western Conference, in this all-star game if there were 13 and not 12. And then with the Eastern Conference, a couple guys I had in there that I didn't make it. I had Maxey in there. I had as well as who was the other guy I had in there? I had Maxey, and I had Maxey, and I had Trae Young. That's another big thing. Like, Trae Young, he's leading the league in assists. He's had multiple 20-20 games this year, like 2-3 20-20 games this year, and he's not an all-star. Garland's great. Hero's great. And, so is Lillard, but those guys are not having better season. Garland's had a great season. Lillard's had a great season. Hero's had a great season, but Trae Young's averaging 24 and 12 right now. Is leading the league in assists. And then with Maxey, he's had to play most of the year without Paul George and Embiid, and he's averaging 27. It really makes you really look at it and say there should be 8 reserves and not 7. Because you could get Maxey or Trae Young in there in the East, and not have to punish someone who has played great basketball like Tyler Hero or Darius Garland. Just to me, I felt like Maxey and Trae should have been there. The 7 guys I had in the East, I had Mobley, Pascal, Jaylen Brown, Dame, Cade, Trae, and Maxey. So I got the first 5 right. I had Trae and Maxey in there. They weren't. In the West, I had J-Dub, I had Şengün, I had AD, I had Wemby, I had Sabonis. So those first 5 were right. The first 4 were right, and Sabonis was wrong. And then I had Kyrie. That he obviously wasn't in there, and I had Ant. So didn't have Harden in there. I debated about it. I knew Harden should be an all-star, but it's just so tough to pick. And then I also wanted to put Jaren Jackson Jr. in there, but it's also so hard to pick when you got Sabonis making numbers like he has had this year. And then in the East, I had Mobley, Pascal Brown, Dame, Cade, Trae, and Maxey. So so much talent in the league. And there's so many guys at home this year going to be sitting at home during the All-Star game, and they should be in the All-Star game. It's tough to see. Let me know your thoughts on the NBA All-Stars being announced in the comment section, and peace out.